Discover the incredible moment when a little girl transforms a grumpy CEO's life. You won't believe what happens next. Jack Simmons stormed into his sleek office, his tailored suit taut against the frenzy pulse of New York City outside. He reveled in the hum of the stock market ticker, the electric ambitions of his tech startup echoing in every corner. To the world, he was the epitome of success. To himself, he was a man trapped behind polished glass, too far gone in the hustle to even notice the cracks appearing around him. His 16-year-old daughter, Emma, felt like a stranger, shadows lingering in hallways where laughter should roam. The relentless pressure to perform had turned their home life into a ghost town, and Jack was the most haunting resident of all. "Jack, you're required at the Community Service Initiative today," his assistant's voice chirped through the intercom, prying him away from graphs and numbers that promised ever higher profits. He sighed, irritation bubbling. That was not on his agenda. It felt like a detour from success, but she persisted. "You might find it worthwhile," she insisted, but Jack's mind raced, his calendar dominated by meetings and strategizing, skepticism burning through the thin veneer of courtesy he maintained. Entering the chaotic classroom, a whirlwind of voices drowned him. Children, bright-eyed and exuberant, collided against his uptight sensibilities. Then, he spotted her Sophie, a small girl with a radiant grin, despite the pallor of her frail frame. Her laughter danced through the noise, infectious, and despite himself, Jack felt drawn to her energy. She spoke of dreams, her voice unrestrained, animated by the thought of an innovative device that would bring joy to children like herself. Jack couldn't help but question his obsessive pursuit of profit. Her determination was a stark contrast to the irrepressible pursuits that burdened him. Before he knew it, he was mentoring her, absorbed in her world, ignorance of how her innocent enthusiasm chipped away at his walls. Yet as their shadows intertwined over blueprints and sketches, the grim specter of reality loomed larger. Jack hadn't expected to feel hope or connection, certainly not from a little girl trapped in the fragility of illness. It felt too dangerous to care, but he couldn't contain the stirring inside him, conflicting emotions swirling. Just as he grasped the essence of her light, Sophie's health plummeted. At her hospital bedside, Jack stared at the sterile walls, heart racing, question rising with tension. What was a fortune worth if it cost him these fleeting moments? As she drifted in and out of consciousness, the air felt electric with unspoken truths. He could almost hear his father's voice, once full of optimism, echoing his vision of using technology to create a better world, values now lost amidst the chase for accolades and profit margins. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sophie's frail fingers wrapped around his, and every heartbeat felt like a countdown. Could he risk everything? Standing at the crossroads of personal ambition and the love he neglected for so long, Jack faced the ultimate dilemma: what truly defined wealth? The doctor's grave prognosis returned him to an unbearable reality, a crucial decision awaiting his resolve like the looming shadows that swallowed him whole. Would he let the ghosts of corporate ambition consume him, or could he begin to forge a new path, one illuminated by the flickering light of a little girl's hopes? The clock was ticking, urging Jack to confront demons he thought had long been buried. In a moment wrapped in peril and desperation, he felt a fracture in the foundation of the life he had built. Would he finally break free, or remain ensnared in a web of regret? The sterile scent of antiseptic filled the air as Jack sat by Sophie's bedside, struggling to process the turmoil churning within him. Time felt suspended, each tick of the clock echoing louder than the last. He watched her pale face fluctuate between serenity and struggle, each shallow breath forcing him to confront the realities he had long avoided. The weight of his choices hung over him, a suffocating reminder of the divide he had created between himself and everything that mattered. While Sophie lay fighting her greatest battle, Jack felt his own self grapple with his past and present. He was a man who had traded human connection for ambition, yet here, in this dimly lit room, the lesson was crystallizing. Immediately, he began questioning the decisions that led him to this moment. The raises, the corner office, the accolades, all meaningless when stacked against the essence of life he had chosen to ignore. In the depths of his being, he began to recognize that the measure of a man is not taken in the tangible wealth he accumulates but in how he impacts the lives of others. Driven by an urge to make sense of it all, Jack reached for a pen in his jacket pocket and opened a notebook that had long been collecting dust. Rather than the ambitious graphs he usually drafted, he began to sketch out ideas inspired by Sophie's radiant spirit. He envisioned a project that could benefit children like her, ones filled with laughter and dreams, adventures made possible through technology, with no room for limitations. This was more than a business idea, it was a passion igniting within him, a yearning to craft something that held real significance. As he concentrated on the sketches, a sense of clarity washed over him. He began to see the intersection of his skills and Sophie's dreams. In that moment, he envisioned a product that accurately reflected both, something that would not only set his company apart but could change lives. A toy that promotes health and joy for children dealing with illness, facilitating connections while encouraging creativity. It was a picture of united hopes, molded by the innocence of a child and the expertise of an entrepreneur. Yet, the shadows would not release their hold. The fear of failure gnawed at him. What if he fell short? What if he couldn't deliver, creating another disappointment in Sophie's fragile world? But just as doubt began its chokehold, he recognized the importance of overcoming adversity, realizing that vulnerability could also be a source of power. Jack needed to break free from the comfort of his corporate cocoon, where the numbers often dictated his worth. He felt a stirring hope. Perhaps this endeavor was not just about Sophie, it was about his own resurrection. With newfound determination, he called Emma. Their conversations had become stunted, wrapped in life's distractions, but she could be his partner in this mission. Together, they could breathe life into the ideas sketched on paper. As the phone rang, anticipation coursed through him. Would she see the transformation unfolding within him? It was now or never time to rise from the confines of gridlocked ambition and face uncertainty together. At that moment, as Emma's voice greeted him, Jack's resolve crystallized. He would share not just the burden of responsibility but the thrill of discovery with her, reigniting their relationship as well. But as he stared into the horizon of possibilities, he felt a sudden chill. The medical team had entered the room, their faces painted with concern, and just beyond Jack's adrenaline-fueled excitement, a dark cloud of reality hovered ominously, tightening its grip once again. What awaited him on that path of restoration? Would he uncover the strength to bridge the gap between purpose and profit, or would the efforts to connect both worlds lead to a devastating confrontation just lurking at the edges? The room filled with a tense air as the medical team navigated around Sophie's bed, their voices lower than whispers but laced with urgency. Jack's heart raced, a steady thump against his chest, feeling each beat punctuate the stillness that enveloped the space. As the doctors began their assessments, he fought to maintain focus on the empowerment he felt just moments ago. The sketches in his notebook felt suddenly distant, as reality clawed back its grip on him, setting forth a duality of dread and determination. "Jack," a nurse called, snapping him from his spiraling thoughts. "Can you step outside for a moment?" Her tone was professional, but it carried an undercurrent of concern that made him swallow hard. The door closed quietly behind him, momentarily separating him from the frantic pace inside. In that corridor, he leaned against the cool, tiled wall, forcing himself to breathe. The doubts he thought he had shaken began to resurface. What kind of leader was he if he couldn't even protect the one person who ignited his spirit? The conflict raged within him, the urgency to drive forward with his newfound dream against the paralyzing fear of losing Sophie. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Emma was calling back. For a second, he paused, torn between two worlds. His fingers hesitated over the screen. Answers from the doctors or a conversation filled with potential? Finally, he answered, his voice steadier than he felt. "Jack. I was just about to text you. What is going on?" Emma's excitement momentarily broke through the gloom. "I was thinking about our project," he said, cutting to the chase. "I've got sketches, ideas, something that could change lives." "Great. Tell me everything." Her enthusiasm sparked something deep within him. As Jack shared the concept, he found himself swept back into his vision. He spoke about the integration of play and healing, how they could use his expertise to create tools that would not merely entertain but support children through their illness. The clearer he articulated the vision, the more he could feel his confidence rekindling. "Jack, this could be revolutionary. We need to flesh this out. I want in," Emma said, her voice brimming with passion. "But are you ready? This requires you to step outside your comfort zone." The implication landed heavy on him. Could he do both? Could he be Sophie's advocate in this difficult moment while launching into this new venture? The answer evaded him. Just as clarity surged, it receded, leaving him in a state of turmoil once more. "Hear me out," Emma continued. "This is your chance to really create something meaningful. To transform your career from all those corporate grafts into something tangible and impactful. Do you trust yourself enough to chase this?" Her words reverberated through him, leaving little room for self-doubt. Suddenly, he recognized the personal evolution calling him forward, the invitation to reshape the entirety of his life. Sophie had entrusted him. Could he honor that trust by embracing a greater purpose? As he stood in the hallway, a wave of determination settled upon him. "Yes, Emma. You're right. I'll do it. I'll make this happen," he declared, feeling the tension of impending action settle behind his resolve. But just then, the door swung open, and the medical team emerged, their expressions tight with gravity. Jack's heart dropped. Behind the promise of his vision lay the haunting uncertainty of the present, looming larger now than ever. What news awaited him on the other side of that threshold? Would the news bring a dark twist that could threaten both his aspirations and the fragile hope he clung to? The feeling of impending change stroked his veins. Was he ready to face the ultimate test? Jack's breath hitched as the lead doctor approached, his gaze penetrating yet weary. The sterile corridor felt suffocating, each ticking second a reminder of the weight pressing down on his chest. He couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom that coated his thoughts. "Mr. Carter?" The doctor's voice cut through the haze. "Can we speak privately?" Jack's heart raced, visions of devastation threatening to collapse the fragile bubble of resolve he had begun to build. He nodded, following the doctor to a quieter corner, the walls closing in around him. "Sophie had a seizure," the doctor began, his words straightforward yet void of tenderness. "We stabilized her, but she needs to remain under observation." The impact of the revelation hit him like a tidal wave. Jack's resolve faltered. His vision for the future flickered like a candle caught in a gust. The doctor continued speaking, outlining potential treatments, but Jack felt detached, wrestling with the implications of each word. As Sophie's condition hung suspended in uncertainty, he waded through the emotional turmoil, questioning the strength of his leadership. How could he possibly pivot toward creativity when he felt so helpless? "Are there any guarantees?" he finally managed to ask, his voice strained. "There are never guarantees," the doctor replied, glancing downward. "But we're doing everything we can." Jack swallowed hard, grappling with his sense of agency. The fear of losing Sophie accelerated the already racing thoughts in his mind. Wasn't he stepping into the unknown part of being a leader? Could he choose to embrace his vision while hovering in this space of anxiety and chaos? Returning to the waiting area, the chatter from other families blurred at the edges, as if he were wrapped in a bubble of silence. He pulled out his phone, unlocking it with determination. Emma had sent a few texts, each one filled with encouraging words about the project. But could he focus on those ambitions when Sophie's life sat precariously in the balance? "Jack. How's she doing?" Emma's voice emerged over the heavy fog. "She's stable for now," he replied, needing to script his words carefully. "I'm going to make this happen, Emma. The project. But it feels impossible right now. Listen, sometimes we need to harness our darkest moments to fuel our brightest ideas. This could be your driving force," she insisted. "Think about how that will not only help others but also work as a tribute to Sophie's spirit. She deserves that." Her words pierced through the haze of despair, igniting a flicker of fiery determination. As he absorbed her encouragement, Jack realized he could pivot back into his dreams while still fighting for Sophie. The clarity was liberating. He needed to honor her battles and struggles by championing the very cause that could transform lives. Fueled by renewed purpose, Jack began jotting down ideas in his notebook again. Each stroke of the pen felt like an invocation, his ambitions weaving together thoughts of healing through play, much like how Sophie had brought joy into his mundane world. The impending challenge loomed, an intersection of personal struggle and professional ambition. Jack was ready to navigate the tightrope, but a new worry gripped him. Would the emotional toll he bore impact his ability to lead effectively? He also felt a new urgency to involve Sophie in this journey. She should be part of it, not just the inspiration, but as an active participant in the creative process once she recovered. Would she embrace that role? Her ability to throw joy into dark moments could become the very heart of his project. Just as he finished drafting his outline, a nurse entered the waiting area, her expression calculated yet warm. Jack. His heart raced once more, grappling between fear and the unmerited hope he had just summoned. Yes? There's something you need to see, she said softly, drawing him toward the door of Sophie's room. What revelation awaited him behind that door? Would it fortify his resolve or bury it in uncertainty once more? The moment hung in balance, urging him to confront yet another reality that could redefine his purpose. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with the hum of medical machinery. Jack stepped inside, his heart a cacophony of dread and anticipation. There, amidst the sterile environment, lay Sophie, her fragile frame swathed in blankets. Monitors beeped rhythmically, charting her vital signs. The sight of her brought a rush of conflicting emotions: relief at her stabilization, fear for her future, and an overwhelming love that threatened to consume him. "Sophie," he whispered, moving closer, his fingers brushing against her small hand. Her eyes flickered open, revealing the bright light of recognition that pierced his heart. "Hey, kiddo. It's me. Daddy." Her voice was a faint murmur, yet it resonated with his deepest resolve. "Yeah, it's me. I'm right here," he assured her, feeling the solidity of his intentions interlace with the fragile hopes for her healing. As the moments unfolded, Jack recalled Emma's encouragement, recognizing the power Sophie wielded, even in her vulnerable state. He spoke to her about the project, about how they could create something special together when she got better. "It's going to help so many kids, Miss Sophomore. Your spirit will be in every bit of it." Sophie smiled faintly, the corners of her mouth lifting ever so slightly. "Can we make a slide that goes really fast?" she asked, her innocent excitement reigniting a spark inside him. "Absolutely," he replied, realizing that her dreams were worth the fight, giving him newfound clarity. Each moment spent with her became a step toward discovery, his own path intertwined with hers, his leadership and creativity blossoming from the ashes of fear. But the nurse interrupted his reverie, reminding him of the limits imposed by reality. "She needs her rest, Mr. Carter. There will be plenty of time for chats later." As he stepped outside, the weight of responsibility returned, and uncertainty nagged at him like a persistent itch. Would Sophie understand the stakes involved in bringing their shared dream to life? Would she have the strength to join him in this venture, to navigate the challenges ahead? The clarity was promising, but it came with a fresh layer of complexity. Jack's determination to lead required not just a vision, but also trust in Sophie, trust she could fulfill that role. The call to action echoed within him, demanding choices aligned with integrity and vulnerability. That evening, back in his apartment, Jack sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by crumpled papers and half-formed ideas. Drawing a deep breath, he set his gaze on the empty space before him, one that desperately yearned to be filled with innovation and purpose. Grouping his notes, he began drafting a plan, one that reflected their dreams but also honored his commitment to Sophie's recovery. Could he blend personal experiences with professional aspirations, crafting a project that was not simply a business endeavor but a heartfelt tribute to a child's tenacity? He felt every fragment of hope embedded in his outline, the stakes creeping higher with every added detail. But doubt clawed at his consciousness. He questioned if he could balance these heavy responsibilities while carrying the weight of personal fears. What if his desire to succeed in this project faltered under the intensity of a wounded heart and the critical eyes of his peers? The conflicting emotions bubbled, causing him to hesitate again. Was he truly equipped to merge his professional ambition with deep emotional ties? As he stared out the window, dark clouds loomed above, mirroring the chaos swirling in his mind. The doorbell rang unexpectedly, startling him from his thoughts. He glanced around, unease settling in once again. Who could it be? He moved to the door, curiosity battling the fear of potential revelations. Would this visitor further entangle his path, or would they offer the insight he desperately needed in this pivotal moment? Jack opened the door, revealing Emma, her expression a mix of compassion and determination. Despite the weary lines etched on her face, there was strength in her stance that reminded him of the very reason he had engaged with her project in the first place. "Hey, Jack. I know it's late, but I thought you might need some company," she said, stepping over the threshold with a confidence that surprised him. "Yeah, come in," he replied, moving aside. He felt an impulse to shield his turmoil from her, yet in the same breath, he recognized her as a catalyst for change, one that might push him through the haze clouding his judgment. As they settled at the kitchen table, Jack gestured at the scattered pages. "I've been brainstorming the concept for the project. Trying to envision how it can embody Sophie's spirit, but..." He trailed off, his voice fading under the weight of frustration. "Talk to me about it," Emma urged, her eyes scanning the chaotic collection of ideas scattered before him. A wave of vulnerability washed over him as he unspooled his thoughts. He described his visions of playgrounds interwoven with therapeutic elements, spaces where children could play freely while feeling nurtured and uplifted. "But what if I'm not capable of executing it? What if it's just a silly dream that I'm projecting onto Sophie?" Emma leaned back slightly, her gaze steady. "It's not silly, Jack. It's grounded in love and hope. But the question is, what do you want? Not just for the project, but for you and Sophie?" His heart raced at the notion. What did he want? Sure, he wanted the project to succeed, but he craved a deeper connection, a legacy of resilience that Sophie could embody, not just as a memory but as a driving force in her life. "I want her to be proud of me, of what we create." The honesty in his admission stirred something in him, a glimpse of his longing. "Then create from that place," Emma said, her voice firm yet tender. "Craft this project as a reflection of your journey, not just hers. Artists don't just replicate, they express their truths, and your truth is that you're scared but determined." Her encouragement wove itself into Jack's consciousness, and with each heartbeat, he felt a sense of awakening. Taking a deep breath, he gathered all the emotional fragments scattered within him: his fear, love, and determination. It was time to embrace his role, not just as Sophie's father, but as a visionary with the potential to innovate beyond his self-imposed limitations. What if we reframe the project? Make it a celebration of overcoming, he proposed, the idea bubbling to the surface. A series of interactive experiences that guide children through challenges, showing them they can confront their fears and rise above them, just like Sophie is doing. Emma's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as she nodded. "That's it. Let us outline these concepts more concretely. This is your vision, it's powerful and dynamic." The rest of the night dripped away between sketches and words, their synergy igniting renewed purpose. Jack felt as if he were shedding layers of doubt like old skin, embracing a role that honored both his personal narrative and Sophie's strength. But as the clock chimed midnight, another wave of fear crashed upon him. Would the world outside his apartment accept this fresh, innovative direction? What if the corporate stakeholders he needed to engage would see his emotional ties as weaknesses? Those persistent doubts loomed, leaving him with a gnawing uncertainty. Could he truly weave emotions and corporate ambitions into a single fabric that would resonate with others, or would he be laughed off as a misguided dreamer? As the realization sunk in, a chill crept through the room, reminding him of the reality that lay ahead. Their brainstorming session had ignited a flicker of hope, but uncertainty loomed like a specter at the edges of his ambition. "Jack, this project is more than just a business. It's a legacy," Emma's voice broke his reverie, grounding him in the moment. "Don't let fear dictate your steps." He found a strange comfort in her words, yet they propelled him firmly into the fray of self-reflection. The moment of truth was approaching, and beneath the surface of their conversation, a reality was forming, one that would demand he confront his deepest insecurities. Tomorrow, he would have to reach out to the stakeholders, equipped with more than a plan. He needed to present himself, fully raw, with a vision forged in vulnerability. As Emma took her leave, Jack was left staring at the papers before him, the seed of courage planted but surrounded by wild uncertainty. Tomorrow's meeting loomed large, a test of his resolve and authenticity. The stakes had never felt higher. Could he muster enough strength to stand his ground against the tides that threatened to sweep him away? As the dawn approached, so did the inevitable confrontation with himself. Jack felt his fate inching closer, and in mere hours, he would face the unveiling of his aspirations, perhaps his greatest test yet. Jack awoke the next morning, a tangle of dread and determination interwoven in his chest. The sunlight filtered through the curtains, illuminating the mess of sketches and notes on the kitchen table like a spotlight on the scene of a crime. Today was the day he would step out of the shadows of self-doubt, not just for the project, but for himself. He brewed his morning coffee with a sense of urgency, each drip echoing the countdown to his impending meeting. The familiar aroma wrapped around him, but it did little to ease the knot in his stomach. As he sipped the hot liquid, he stared out the window, searching for clarity. Would he really choose to present his most vulnerable self today, unmasked and open, to the corporate giants? The thought chilled him. After a quick shower, he dressed in a crisp shirt that felt tight against his skin, a reminder of his newfound resolve. This was not merely a presentation to shareholders, it was a declaration of his identity. He was not just Sophie's father or a mere participant in a corporate scheme. He was an innovator, a visionary whose ideas had the potential to inspire. Driving towards the corporate headquarters of the stakeholders felt surreal. The city word passed him in a blur, matching the chaotic rhythm of his thoughts. He rehearsed his pitch in his mind repeatedly, adjusting his emotional tones and sketching the narrative that intertwined his personal journey with the project. Each turn brought him closer to a confrontation, one that was daunting yet liberating. Upon entering the sleek, minimalist lobby, Jack caught a glimpse of himself in the mirrored walls, a man fraught with insecurities yet standing on the brink of transformation. He cleared his throat, adjusted his tie, and reminded himself of the words Emma had shared. This meeting could not be just a transactional encounter, it had to be a connection. The boardroom framed an unfamiliar view of polished surfaces and expectant faces. The stakeholders sat around a long table, their expressions a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Jack inhaled deeply, summoning every ounce of courage before he stepped into the arena. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steady despite the fierceness in his heartbeat. He introduced the project, weaving Sophie's story with impactful anecdotes that showcased the potential benefits for children facing their own adversities. He painted vivid pictures of vibrant spaces designed to uplift and support, spaces that echoed resilience. Each word felt like a battle cry, echoing against the doubts that had plagued him. He leaned into moments of vulnerability, sharing insights about his fears and what Sophie's journey had taught him about facing life's harshest challenges. The stakeholders listened intently, their initial wariness shifting into contemplation. He noticed a few nodding along, their expressions softening at the emotional resonance of his narrative. Jack's confidence surged. This wasn't just a pitch, it was a call to action, a plea anchored in love and hope. Just as he reached the crescendo of his proposal, a voice cut through the atmosphere. "That's a wonderful concept, Jack. But how do you plan to monetize it?" The question struck him like a swift punch. It was predictable, yet it sent a shockwave of doubt through him. Could he translate this emotional tapestry into numbers? He grappled with the realization that despite his clarity of vision, the project's survival hinged on the acceptance of cold hard facts. Incorporating interactive elements will engage children not just at a personal level but will also attract educational institutions and therapy providers who value innovative approaches, he replied, searching for a balance between emotional depth and financial practicality. As he articulated his thoughts, he experienced a pivotal moment, a revelation not born of false bravado but from an unshakable belief in the project's capacity to change lives. He discovered a hidden competency within himself to bridge feelings with practicality, merging artistry with entrepreneurship. Jack's mind raced, and the focus of the room shifted from mere skepticism to genuine interest. He could sense the tide turning. They were no longer merely stakeholders assessing market viability but potential allies captivated by a vision of change. The meeting concluded, but lingering energy remained. Jack stepped out of the boardroom, breathing in the air of possibility. He had not only pitched a project, he had laid bare his soul, woven from threads of fear, hope, and resilience. Yet as the adrenaline waned, creeping feelings of apprehension returned. Had he truly articulated the gravity of his ambitions? Would they see beyond numbers and contracts to the lives this project could touch? Would his emotional connection to the project lead him to triumph or mark him as a fool? As he glanced back down the polished corridor, uncertainty shadowed his newfound courage. The outcome remained unclear, and he needed to confront the delicate dance between vulnerability and professional expectations. The next steps felt daunting, yet exhilarating an intricate path ahead, one that could either grant him legacies or failures, but ultimately defined by his own courage to rise against the odds. Could he further integrate the heart of his vision with the rational demands of the business world? Tomorrow would come with challenges yet unseen, and the real work was just beginning. Jack woke the next morning with a fierce resolve coursing through his veins. The conversations from yesterday's meeting echoed in his mind, reframing every moment of doubt into a foundation for what lay ahead. He poured himself a steaming cup of coffee, allowing the rich aroma to ground him as he pulled out his notes. Today was not merely a continuation of the pitch, it was an opportunity to refine his vision into something even more compelling. He needed to focus on the commercial impact of his ideas without losing the emotional essence that inspired them. Jack felt invigorated, ready to tackle the aftermath of his presentation, but a lingering anxiety asked if he could sustain this momentum. Before diving into his work, he harnessed the startling images of children he had envisioned during his presentation. He revered that sense of purpose, a calling, of sorts, molding his sketches with fresh energy. Would the stakeholders be willing to invest in a future that thrived on compassion and connection? They had listened to his story, but Jack had to follow through, illustrating how the project could intertwine heart with hard numbers. Seated at his kitchen table, pencil in hand, he built financial projections that interlaced profitability with his transformative goals. This was a fine balance to achieve. He analyzed cost factors, considering partnerships with educational institutions and nonprofits, convinced that outcomes rooted in genuine care would yield tangible returns. His mind darted from one idea to another, envisioning the excitement of children engaged in innovative environment spaces that encouraged exploration and growth. As the day wore on, however, doubt crept back, gnawing at the edges of his determination. Images of those skeptical faces returned, stifling his fervor under the weight of uncertainty. Would investors see the worth in a mission steeped in principles often overshadowed by profit margins? The thought curled in his stomach like consuming smoke. Jack wrestled with this internal conflict, battling the fear that he might be misguided in his vision. His phone buzzed, breaking his concentration. It was Emma, his trusted confidant and anchor. "Let us meet up later. Want to discuss the next steps?" she texted. Jack hesitated, contemplating solitude. Yet a nagging voice within urged him to articulate his fears rather than bottle them up. Maybe it was time to confront the depth of his conviction, to weigh it against emerging obstacles. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Jack met Emma at their favorite cafe. The familiar warmth enveloped him, mingling with the invigorating smell of baked goods. Emma's bright smile should have alleviated his worries, yet anxiety still loomed over him, uninvited. "I need your help," he admitted, the weight of vulnerability pressing down on him. "I thought I had it all figured out, but how can I ensure they truly understand the value behind this?" Jack glanced around as if the answer would materialize in the bustling crowd, each person a potential ally or adversary. Emma leaned in, a knowing look crossing her face. "Jack, you opened up about Sophie's journey. You found strength in vulnerability then. Don't let fear twist your message now. Dig deeper. What's at stake for you and for other kids?" Her words stoked the embers of his passion, reigniting the fire beneath his doubts. Jack's thoughts whirred. It wasn't just about securing funding, but rather about creating a legacy that could impact lives. Maybe he needed to refine his approach, interjecting personal stakes even more into his narrative. Without sacrificing authenticity, he could present sound strategies that held both emotional and financial potential. Their discussion evolved into a brainstorming session, where ideas bounced off the walls. Emma's insights were sharp, often revealing a perspective he hadn't considered. When they narrowed down the key points to present in his follow-up meetings, Jack felt galvanizing possibilities emerge. As they concluded their meeting, Jack made a vow he wouldn't shy away from vulnerability but would instead wield it with confidence. This project represented not just his aspirations but a chance to leave a footprint, to redefine success not by cold numbers but by the hearts they touched. Walking home, the world felt different, buoyed by collective energy. The streets pulsed with life, reminding him that every step forward was an opportunity for connection. Each person passing by was an embodiment of the battle he wished to fight through his work. But the urgency of it all remained. What if I still don't get through to them? The specters of doubt revived, reminding him that next meetings would be pivotal. Just as a spark surged tonight, he knew the coming days would challenge him in unexpected ways. The question lingered: could he ultimately meld vulnerability with undeniable effectiveness? The real test loomed, and with it, the promise of profound evolution awaited. What other revelations about himself did he still need to uncover as he pressed forward? The morning sun filtered through Jack's kitchen window, casting warm light on his notes scattered across the table. Armed with fresh insights from his meeting with Emma, he resolved to shift his approach for the next stakeholder presentation. He felt an urgency to do more than simply portray numbers. He had to awaken the sleeping giants of empathy within each potential investor. Seated at the table, Jack began to conceptualize his narrative, envisioning the impact of his work as a powerful story rather than a disjointed collection of strategies. He envisioned not just classrooms filled with children learning and laughing, but profound moments when a child's eyes lit up at the discovery of a new concept. Could he convey this through data? He began to sketch out visuals, graphs entwined with images of joyful children, their expressions rife with curiosity and wonder. But as the storytelling flowed, Jack felt a rising tide of anxiety, forcing him to confront a harder truth. What if he stumbled again? What if his story couldn't break through the barriers erected by skepticism? This thought triggered a wave of self-reflection. Jack's journey had not been devoid of failures, and while he recognized that success was often sprinting alongside it, becoming a source of strength rather than a point of shame, the shadow of doubt began to stretch ominously across his newfound enthusiasm. Just as he began to spiral internally, a message popped up on his phone, an invitation to a networking event that evening. The thought of mingling with potential investors felt disjointed with his current state of mind. Should I go? He wondered. Yet Emma's voice echoed in his head, challenging him to confront vulnerability head-on. Jack decided to attend. He donned a crisp navy blazer that felt both professional and a touch protective. Standing in front of the mirror, he breathed deeply, mentally rehearsing his narrative. "You've done this before," he whispered to himself, though his reflection bore witness to the tightening knot in his stomach. Upon arrival, the venue buzzed with chatter and clinking glasses, a sea of suits swirling about. Jack felt like an outsider peering into a world of seasoned negotiators and authoritative voices. For a moment, he felt trapped in an old cycle of self-doubt, threatening to paralyze him. But then, catching the gaze of a few young folks animatedly discussing ideas, he felt a flicker of purpose that outweighed his trepidation. He made his way to a quieter corner, giving himself a moment to observe, to breathe. It wasn't about him versus the world, it was about collaboration, pushing boundaries, and influencing hearts. The doubt he felt was palpable, but perhaps it was the very essence of his humanity that would lead him to breakthrough. With determination, Jack engaged in casual conversations, deftly weaving in snippets of his vision alongside small talk typical of networking scenarios. With each interaction, he found his rhythm, gradually shifting from a passive participant to someone who could showcase the potential of his ideas without hesitation. He felt the story shaping in real time, pieces flowing into place as he chatted. Then, just as he began to build steam, he approached a woman who emanated an air of authority and intellect. She was a known investor with a reputation for being rigid in her assessments. Jack hesitated, half-formed words scrambling in his brain as he introduced himself. But before he could lose steam, he made a decision. "Let me show you something that matters to me," he said, surprising even himself with his boldness. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his sketches. As he laid them on the table, he felt the weight of his vulnerability, the stakes rising with the intensity in the air. Would she dismiss them? Would she see through to the emotional weight they carried? The tension was palpable. The future of his project hung in the delicacy of that single moment, ready to unveil deeper layers of himself or retreat back into doubt. Jack balled his hands into fists, feeling the pulse of ambition combined with fear coursing through him. Would this interaction carve a new path or reinforce his discomfort? The answer sat on the precipice, fluttering in the unknown. In this moment, Jack realized he stood at the threshold of a pivotal transformation, one that would either shape his legacy or leave him grasping at disappointment. As the investor's gaze flicked from the sketches to his face, Jack held his breath, waiting for a response that could either shatter his hopes or ignite a new beginning. What would the price of vulnerability reveal? What door would it open, or would it close just as swiftly? Jack felt the atmosphere shift as the investor's eyes studied his sketches, each passing second stretching out like an eternity. The room faded, and it was just him, the illustrations, and the weight of expectation thickening in the air. He was no longer just pitching an idea, he was laying bare his vision, a tapestry woven from Sophie's spirit and his rediscovered purpose. This was it, the moment that could soar or plummet. Finally, the investor looked up, an intrigued expression crossing her face. "These are quite compelling, Jack. I appreciate the depth of thought here," she said slowly, her gaze softening. "But how do you plan to handle the operational aspects of this venture? We need sound metrics to assess viability." Jack felt a mix of exhilaration and anxiety rush through him. She was showing interest, but the question loomed, just as it had in earlier meetings. Summoning his resolve, Jack spoke clearly, "We'll forge partnerships with schools and hospitals to integrate our experiences. It's crucial we embed ourselves in these communities, where we can receive direct feedback that will guide our improvements." The words flowed more smoothly now. He was articulating not only an idea but also a mission that resonated in him significantly. As they delved deeper into the practicalities, Jack painted vibrant illustrations of classrooms transformed into nurturing environments, where education met therapeutic play. He even referenced real-world models that had succeeded, citing tangible benefits to the children involved while also demonstrating a strong business case. With each articulate response, something within him began to solidify. The chaotic doubts he had battled were now yielding ground to clarity and confidence. His energy transformed. This wasn't a mere corporate negotiation, it was an opportunity to champion a cause that mattered deeply to him. As the discussion continued, Jack felt the connection forged between them. This investor wasn't looking at mere numbers, she was absorbing his passion, his drive to create spaces where joy and healing intersected. The realization washed over him. He had conquered not just the significance of his pitch but had also demonstrated that he was capable of navigating through the complexities of merging passion with professionalism. After an intense conversation that felt fluid and harmonious, the investor leaned back, a gleam of approval brightening her eyes. "I believe in your vision, Jack. I want to support you. Let us draft a proposal and explore funding options." Relief flooded through him, warmth spreading like sunlight on a spring morning. He had done it. In that moment, Jack felt not only the thrill of recognition but a profound sense of fulfillment. Success would no longer be gauged solely by profit margins or accolades but by the very essence of impact he aimed to create. His journey had transformed him from a man shackled by ambition to one liberated by purpose and compassion. Returning home, the world outside the cafe seemed more vibrant, filled with possibilities. The shadows that once clung to him had dissipated, revealing a pathway illuminated by hope and renewed ambition. As the evening quieted, Jack picked up his phone and texted Emma, "We did it. I got a commitment for funding. This is just the beginning." His heart swelled with a profound sense of gratitude, not just towards Emma's unwavering support, but also towards Sophie's spirit, which had ignited this transformation within him. The synthesis of personal and professional had been achieved. Jack was no longer just a businessman, he was a father, an innovator, a person determined to make a meaningful impact against the tide of traditional success metrics. This journey was just starting, and with a newfound purpose gleaming in his soul, he was ready to chart a course that honored not only the dreams he chased but the ones he now held dear, the dreams of a little girl who showed him what truly mattered. Jack leaned back in his chair, knowing he was finally stepping into a life defined by authenticity and significance. Shaped by connections forged through sincere intent. Tomorrow, he would gather the sketches again, refining them not just for stakeholders, but for every child who deserved to dream, thrive, and find joy through the art of play. This was his moment, his legacy illuminated by the power of trust, vulnerability, and, most importantly, love. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.